Sydney Friedman is a realtor with Home and Farms Realty, serving the Knoxville, Tennessee market and surrounding areas, and specializing in a really cool niche in real estate. Sydney, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Great to have you. I'm excited about this conversation. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm always trying to keep an eye out for real estate agents who are working in have kind of niched down their business, or working in with a unique type niche or client. And sometimes those are exciting niches, and sometimes they're just categories of real estate that need better service. You happen to be working in a pretty cool niche, I think. We're going to dive more into it, but the Home and Farms Realty, the name of the brand, might give it away a little bit. Sydney, before we dive into that, though, I always like to start these conversations off with a little bit of info on my guest, a little bit of a bio on you, like hometown, previous career, if any, and what inspired you to get into real estate.
So I'm actually from San Diego, California. I've lived in the Knoxville area for a little over 10 years now, but that's where I came from. Very different world, but I think that it gives me a really unique perspective in making a big move and making big changes. I did have a previous career. I used to be a pediatric speech pathologist, so I was in the healthcare field. And I was just really looking for a couple of things. I love working with people. I love working with families, and I love serving people. I have a huge servant's heart, and I was trying to find something that allowed me to continue serving and working with families, but gave me a little bit more flexibility, which is ironic because I work a lot more now, but gave me a little bit more flexibility because I actually competitively show horses. So I wanted something that allowed me to be on the road if I needed to be, to make up for it by working through the weekends if I needed to, and it kind of directed me into the real estate world.
Sherry D'Alessandro is a realtor here. I'm based in the Charlotte market, and she was one of my early guests on this podcast. And she was also in the medical field. I think a nurse practitioner or a registered nurse, something along those lines. I can't recall exactly, but anyway, she made the transition, the career change into real estate about 5 or 6 years ago, and she's been extremely successful. And I think it has a lot to do with that, what you alluded to, what you mentioned, that servant's heart, that servant's attitude, and the love of working with people, and also a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit that trickled in there as well. The Home and Farms Realty brand is one of the attributes that really caught my eye. We connected on social media, and I noticed I didn't realize you were a competitive, what's the term? Jumper or equestrian? Okay, thank you. But that definitely makes sense. The Home and Farms brand, you and the team there specialize a lot in the equestrian space, and helping clients find equestrian properties. And also, before I forget, I wanted to also touch on the fact that you're from Southern California, and here in the Charlotte market, I'm not sure about Knoxville, probably pretty similar. I've met a lot of folks who are relocating from the West Coast to the East Coast.
A lot of my business.
Yeah, looking for a little bit, I think, calmer pace of life here in the Carolinas and Tennessee. What would you say is not only your expertise, but Home and Farms Realty? Share for listeners, I guess, kind of an overview of what makes Home and Farms Realty special in the category, and specifically some of the additional expertise that you bring to the table when you work with clients.
Absolutely. So this brokerage, my broker Kelly Martin, started honestly based around the equine property. She was an agent for years, and I serve all clients. I sell a ton of lake homes. I sell typical subdivision homes, but we bring a lot of knowledge to the table when it comes to horse properties, horse farms, larger pieces of property in general, because we live it. I've been in the horse world since I was 4 years old. My husband and I have now built 2 farms of our own, and so we really understand what goes into pricing these properties, breaking down how much different types of fencing can cost, what your property is worth if you have pasture land, wooded land, what a barn is worth. They're not all worth the same. What your arena might be worth. Different footing means different things to different buyers. So just being in that space my whole life, and similar with my broker Kelly, and a lot of our agents, it just brings a very unique knowledge set to the table. And then in addition to just pricing and understanding these farms, we have a huge network. I was just at a horse show in Columbus, Ohio with thousands of people from all across the country. So we get to share these listings that we have out of our pocket to people that we see throughout the year all across the country who may be coming from the West Coast. So it just gives us a lot of knowledge to bring to the table, and then really helps us with the ability to market it everywhere, not just in the online space, but just by word of mouth.
I guess it goes without saying, it's got to really help that you've been immersed in that world from such a young age. So you bring like a very authentic perspective to that category of the real estate industry for your clients.
Yeah.
Was that event in Columbus, was that a real estate related event, or was it a competitive jump?
It was a horse show.
Horse show? Okay.
Actually the largest single breed horse show. Yep. It's a big one. It goes on for a month. I was not there the whole time, but
wow.
Yeah, it's a big one.
I spent a pretty good portion of my childhood, teenage years, high school, and it was also home for me when I went to college in Northern Virginia, and Loudoun County and Hunt Country, as we called it. And I did a little bit of horseback riding when I was a teenager in Leesburg and around Leesburg, and the lifestyle is very alluring. I mean, it's obviously the farms are grand. They're gorgeous. The scenery around these places tend to be pretty spectacular. And I bet that's been a really exciting category of business to focus on.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to see these different farms, and it's fun to hear everyone's story of why they're moving to the area, or maybe why they're moving out. And I think people take for granted that it really does take unique knowledge. I have friends text me and say, hey, does this sound okay for my listing? And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't really call it that. That's wrong. Or I've had agents call me and just use incorrect terms. And as a seller, I want to know that my agent understands what I love and what I've built. And so I think having somebody who has actually gone through the motions as well is really helpful, and just making them feel like they're best supported. It's, buying and selling is not always fun. So having someone who really understands your perspective, I think, is really beneficial.
Well, you could probably tell that if I had an equine listing, that I wouldn't know how to phrase certain things either. So I would probably be calling you for some advice in that area. Or may call you for advice on who to refer that to here in the North Carolina, in the Charlotte area. All right, cool. So it makes sense why why you've kind of focused on the Home and Farms Realty brand and the equine space, real estate space. How long have you been a licensed agent?
I'm coming up on my third year.
Third year, okay. Mm-hmm. And that seems to me like historically, I'm not sure how your career started, although the bulk of the beginning was in this 2-year spring market that we just went through. But I've noticed that, and I'm early in my real estate journey as well. I've been a professional marketer for more than 15 years, but I'm new in the real estate space. And everything that I've heard and that I've seen is that typically it takes about a full-time real estate agent who works hard at it and does, let's say, finger quote, all the right things, really hits that stride in their third year. Is that something you'd agree with?
I have heard that as well. I do feel like my first year, I was still working as a speech pathologist when I first got started. I think that I was a little slow then, and I don't know if it's my market. I don't know if it's my work ethic. I don't know if it's my motivation, but I will say probably 3/4 of the way through my first year, I just took off, and I've just continued to grow since. Really
hit the ground running.
Yeah.
How's the market in Knoxville for these properties? Still pretty high demand?
Farm specifically or in general?
Let's do two parts to that question. Farms specifically, which is a unique market, and then housing in general.
So I would say farm specifically, there are so many people moving to this area who want space. Like you were saying, different lifestyle. Everybody wants 5 or more acres. They tend to want a barn. I think there's just a little bit of a misconception that East Tennessee is cheap. While I do think it's a lot more affordable than many other places like California, it's growing in popularity. So it's not necessarily a steal anymore. I think that there are a fair amount of small personal farms for sale. I have some higher end, even training facilities for sale. That's just for this exact reason, a unique market. So
Mhm.
they're kind of sitting around a little bit longer.
Sure.
And then housing in general, I had a very busy summer. I think this area is just booming, and I think there are so many people moving here from different states that really keeps it going. In addition to our huge short-term rental market, with the Gatlinburg area, there's so much money to be made for investors, and I do think that while that has also slowed a little bit, I think that it keeps this market going. I've seen some ebbs and flows, but I feel like we've been fairly steady, or at least my business has been fairly steady since I started, really.
That's interesting. I didn't think about the short term rental market, but yeah, that would make a lot of sense because there are a lot of vacation attractions or opportunities around your area. Have you worked with quite a few investors in your career so far?
Yes, I would say, when thinking about everyone says Home and Farms, and our logo has an awesome farm on or a horse on it. And so I try to tell people that while that's my specialty and while I have a lot of knowledge in that area, it's not all I do. I would say that almost half my business is investors in
Wow.
short-term rental properties. And then I do a lot of relocations, which again, I feel like I have a unique perspective on because I was that person. I moved across the country, didn't know what it was like. I was an outsider. So I would say those are kind of the pillars of my business there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. 50%. I had haven't released the episode yet, but I had another guest on recently who specializes specifically in investment, short-term rentals, Airbnb, and now co-living. Some kind. I don't recall offhand. I haven't edited that one yet. I'll have to go back to it, but that basically that investment space, and it's been. I mean, real estate's cyclical. For sure, and every category is cyclical, but that that space has really exploded over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yep, absolutely.
What about, so since you're kind of new, I should say, you're not new, you're relatively new, so to
Relatively.
speak. You already have a lot of experience. You've achieved a lot of success in the 3 years you've been in the industry. And I think a lot of that must have to do with the fact that you come from, your medical background, the uh, skill sets like your analytical skills, you're obviously educated, and also the stuff that not everybody can be taught, like empathy and patience.
Yeah.
So all this combined skill set probably sets you up for really puts you on a good start to success in your career. But I'd be curious. I always love to ask brokers on this or agents on this podcast if they have some like tips or advice that are kind of fresh in your mind, and for you specifically, because I'd love to know if there's some wins, some strategies or tactics that you've executed in the last couple of years that have been wins. You're also welcome to share any swings and misses if there were any when it comes to marketing or that sort of thing, negotiating. But I'd love to know, like, obviously real estate continues to be a very alluring industry. Social media and Netflix, of course, has really painted it to be very glamorous
Yeah.
and very easy. We know it's not that is not necessarily the case. It's extremely you're running your own business. It's extremely difficult and it's hard work. I would love to know if you had some tips or advice that you could share with those who might be thinking about getting into the industry or really early in their journey.
I would say my biggest two pieces of advice would be pour in and don't give up. I pour a lot of time and energy into what I do. I treat every client the same. I don't care what your budget is. I don't care what your timeline is. I pour my heart and my effort into everybody the same, time wise and energy wise. And something that took me a little bit to be comfortable with and a little bit to get started on is pouring money into my business. And I think it's so important to do it strategically. And I don't just mean buying leads, but more so for marketing. I have done some different approaches to marketing, and that's kind of been my goal, is to not just throw ads on Facebook or like I said, buy leads, but like I did a local high school football sponsorship just to really put myself out in front of the local community, because I'm not from here and that's an area I want to grow into. And I have put a lot of money into my social media marketing, again, not from running ads, but just getting quality videos made so that I had content. It took me a long time to be comfortable with making videos, but they're key. I sold a farm off TikTok, and I don't even use TikTok that much. Like, I think that we take social media for granted, and it's a relatively affordable way to market. You know, you just have good content, and all you have to do is be present and put your content out there. I do it all myself, and I do think that's something that has helped me. Is I get a lot of my business off Facebook, and it's because it's me. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a VA. I don't have anybody out there communicating. I'm the one interacting with people and bringing them value and bringing them information and pouring my time and energy into them. And I think that's what's helped me. And I had months where I was scared and months where I was like, oh my gosh, how many contracts do I have? Oh my gosh, that contract fell apart. But I just didn't give up. And I've just continued to pour into my business and pour into my clients, and my network. I think it's super important to find a good network, a handful of your closest lenders, someone that can handle land, someone that, if you dabble in commercial, someone that can do the short-term rentals, that answers your phone calls at 9 p.m., or title companies that are willing to go above and beyond. It's just very important to me, again, to pour into my network so that they continue to pour into me and treat my clients like I would.
I love that terminology, pour in and don't give up. A lot of great points there that you just mentioned. The investment, the concept of investing into your marketing and the quality of your marketing and your social media and the quality of your branding is so important. I think something that's really underestimated by a lot of new agents. And in North Carolina, agents are brokers. So if I sometimes say
Right,
brokers,
right.
yeah. So anyway, I think that's really worth underscoring, that point of that, you know, you, even though you will be hopefully be affiliated with a reputable brand with a lot of great resources, we're still essentially self-employed and really growing our own business. I love also that you mentioned, I've had other really highly successful agents on the podcast and in my network here in the area who have kind of echoed that sentiment that no matter the price point, that they treat every listing and every client with the same expertise and effort and resources. So one example is Josh Tucker, who is, by the time this episode's released, his episode will be released. I'm actually dropping it tomorrow. He's a broker here in the specifically the Lake Norman area of Charlotte, who began his career about 11 years ago. And his first listing was a $160,000 home. I'm not sure if it's a townhome or single family, but it's $160,000, which is well below the median home price that we have now in the area. It's not a big listing, but he went after it with the best quality video, the best quality images, staged it, did all the marketing things, invested really more than anyone would have typically. But his goal was to build a reputation as the kind of broker who invested that type of those assets and those resources into their marketing. And it paid off because now he's averaging, he just closed 2 listings last month, one for 9.9 and the other one for 8.5. So yeah, I mean, that's, it's that you have to make some sacrifices, I guess, in the beginning is my point. And it really is an investment. You have to be patient and allow those investments to pay off. Your social media is excellent. I thought for sure that you probably hired somebody to do that, but you do all the reels and the post yourself.
Yeah, I do. I have an awesome videographer company that I use. They do all my listing photos,
Hmm.
and then I get crazy ideas. I'm like, hey, can we record for a day? And they'll do some content for me. And those are the very, very professional looking ones. But some of my more casual ones I do by myself, but I post and I write all of it. Again, I totally appreciate and respect everybody who pays for someone else. I think there's definitely a place for that, and maybe I make it work for now, but I like the authenticity behind the fact that I'm doing it and I'm the one responding and I'm the one writing everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think the authenticity shines through in your social media, and it's not overly branded. So I like it. You're
Thank you.
doing really well. I can see why it's so successful. The other thing you mentioned that really resonated with me was that concept of getting used to being on camera, getting used to being recorded, and getting over the fear.
Yep.
And that's something that's really, really hard to do. And I get it. And I totally agree. I think you just, in the words of one of my favorite marketing companies who are huge on YouTube, they have this mantra. They just say, you just have to hit record.
Yeah.
Just hit record.
Yeah.
And
I think that was one of the first things that stuck with me. I was a part of a group probably a year and a half ago, and one of these agents, she was really getting into it, and I was like, never, I could never do that. I would never be on camera. I sound stupid. I look stupid. And she said, just record it and just post it. And I tried to do that. And I mean, I'll have so many drafts in my phone of videos that I've taken, and eventually get to a point where I'm like, just post it, because people don't notice what you're noticing, or they don't care, and it makes it makes your business. And I think just doing it has helped me, and I've gotten over it.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree. You just have to hit record. And when you stop recording, you just got to post it.
Yep.
Don't overanalyze it.
Oh yeah.
And the other advice you had or tip was to network with a variety of lenders. I think that's really important too, especially when you consider the type of diversity in properties that you're working in as well. So what we would call your, normal residential, I guess, residential properties, and then farms. So when I think of networking with various mortgage lenders, there's a lot of lenders who won't do construction loans. They won't do new construction. So it's important to have a lender that you can lean on that will look at those applications and those loans, and then of course farms it is a completely unique
And
set
land.
of and land, right?
Land. Whole other one.
Yeah, land. Yep, exactly. So there's various categories. So I could definitely see where you probably have the virtual Rolodex of mortgage lenders to you know exactly who to call when you have a client with those specific needs. Yeah, I agree too that your network is your net worth. So having these resources handy is really important.
I would say one of
Yeah.
the best reviews I ever received was, well, a couple of them now. Whenever people compliment the inspector that they use because I recommend it, or I had someone say that she felt like she fell into the strongest network of powerful people, and she's so grateful I introduced them. And I was like, wow, I brought so much value to this. She now has everybody she needs from moving out of state, and that's what I find important. Like, I think that connections are so important. We all keep each other going, and that was probably the best review I ever received because of that. I was like, good, like, you got what you need, I got my people what they need, and we're all taken care of.
I totally agree. It's so rewarding when you get that kind of feedback from a client. And I definitely place a super high value, probably above anything else, value those connections, both with clients and also my vendor partners, and the resources in the community. I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of being in the real estate industry or being self-employed are those connections that you make and those referral partnerships that you build. I could probably go on and on about marketing. I'm gonna not digress. I have a tendency to do that, so I'm not going to. I'm going to keep us on track for time because we're doing really well right now. I wanted to know if there are any resources that you've really leaned on over the last few years, and that you would recommend for other real estate agents. So that could be in the marketing space, business planning, inspiration, anything like that, books, podcasts, YouTube channels, or courses. What comes to mind?
So, not real estate specific, and this just taps into my personality a little bit more, but I think that a life-changing audiobook for me, two of them really, were Winning and Relentless by Tim Grover. I am big on mindset, and I think that comes from my athletic background. People always ask me, what are your numbers? Where do you stand? And I think it's important to know that stuff, but for me, I'm very competitive, and I'm very competitive with myself. And if I just continue to motivate myself, and I continue to get better every year, then I can't lose in my brain. So those two are a lot about mindset and just kind of pushing through and being the best version of yourself that you can be. So I love that. Specific to real estate, I listen to Ninja Selling, and I really like that, especially in the first chunk of it. I can't think of who it's by off the top of my head, but he really talks about.
Larry Kendall, is that who?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
I think
It's
he
been
was
a while
the
since I
original.
listened to it.
I think
Yeah.
he was the original author, but he has a huge team now with Ninja Selling. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I love how he hammered how important relationships are. And instead of just, it was an interesting approach to selling. It was all about, and that's where I really try to lean on providing value and building relationships. So that stood out to me. And then I have not finished, I have it with me actually. I've not finished this book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, but I have heard amazing things about it, and it's on my list to keep working through. And then one that I love that I think really helps get people through a little bit of the tougher market is it's called The Realtor's Cookbook by Jeff VanNote. It is just a bunch of very creative approaches to the market. And I think that that's kind of the time that we're in right now is stuff that worked 5 years ago may not be working now. And I think that's something that has allowed me to be successful is just being a little bit more creative and going about things in a different way. I'm not from here. I don't have a huge sphere here. I've had to get a little creative. So that one has helped me out a lot as well.
All excellent choices. Relentless, Tim Grover, wasn't he the mindset coach or the personal coach for some very famous athletes? I want to say Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan.
Yes, Michael Jordan. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name right now? This is so embarrassing. Kobe is who he talks about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I need to read that. And I actually consume my books.
Listen. Like he puts you in your chair, like, okay,
really?
Sir. Yeah.
That's actually how I consume most of my books is through audio now. So that's perfect. That's a perfect fit.
It's amazing. And I mean, there are times you're listening to it and you're like, man, that hurt a little, but he's right. If I want to be at this level, it's what you got to do. And it translates across my life for me in the show pen with my horses, in my fitness aspect of life. I lean on what I learned from those books a lot.
I love that. I'll definitely add Relentless and Winning to my Audible library right after we hang up from this call. Ninja Selling, I was just on my phone checking my Audible library. It's Larry Kendall. Haven't visited that in a little while. An excellent read. And the program, the Ninja Selling program, of course, is really, really highly recommended by so many brokerages across the country. So a great recommendation there. Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. Yeah, Gary Keller is a classic, probably needs to be in every real estate agent's top 5 books to read. And regardless of whether or not you're affiliated with Keller Williams or not, it's just the principles that he outlines from a lifetime of ups and downs and learnings from real estate is very impactful, super useful, and practical for real estate agents. So that's a great read. I actually read that book when I started my marketing business. I was before I got my real estate license. I read that just for its entrepreneurial value,
right.
and so Another great one. And the Realtor's Cookbook, I'm not familiar with that one. I need to check that out. It sounds like a good
Yes.
one.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll have links to those. Well, actually, I'll probably just have the titles and the authors in the description. And then would encourage listeners to grab them on Audible and or just throw them in your Amazon cart or visit your local independent bookstore is really what I would recommend if you're going to get the hardcover or the paperback. But who has time to sit down and read a book? I listen to all my books. So,
Right. Oh, we're on the road.
yep. Sydney, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for joining the podcast. I love that we were able to get your perspective here on the channel and share some of your expertise and your experience. How can listeners learn more about you and connect with you?
I will say I'm most active on Instagram. So my handle is Sid _Home and Farms Realtor. And then my website is Sydney, spelled SYDNEY, .homeandfarms.com.
Perfect. I'll have those links, of course, in the description for this episode. And when this episode goes live, I'll, of course, tag you on Instagram. And can't wait to share this with listeners. So, Sydney, thanks again so much for joining the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much. It's been a joy.